This is Business in the 217. I'm Greg Bishop on the WMAY Morning News Feed. And if you're looking to get out and travel some, Abraham Lincoln Capital Airport's got some destinations for you and big announcements. And joining us, Executive Director of the airport, Mark Hanna. Mark, thanks for taking time with us. And a big announcement last week about American Airlines and the Capital Airport. What's going on?
Yeah, good morning and Happy New Year, Greg, to you and everyone at Midwest Family. So going back into October, when the federal government did not extend the CARES Act funding at that time for airlines, a number of airports, in addition to what we've seen with the CARES Act funding with airports being able to maintain service, once that funding ran out at the end of September, there are a lot of airports that lost service altogether, or their frequencies were trimmed substantially. So Congress, over the course of it, took them 3 months to renew that. And again, that renewal, it came late in December, which goes into mid to late part of March only. So we're going to be back at this again here in the upcoming months. But what that meant for us in Springfield was that American Airlines took that hiatus, waiting on the CARES Act funds to be renewed. That didn't happen until mid to late December. And so we've been following whether or not they're going to be, returning, when the flights are going to be open for sale publicly on their internet, on the website. So that came mid to late December in anticipation of Congress passing the CARES Act extension. And those flights resumed between Springfield and Dallas twice daily, starting on the 5th of January. So right now, the service to Springfield, between Springfield and Dallas-Fort Worth, has been restored twice daily, and that is what we had prior to the pandemic. Switching gears over to Chicago, we still have the United Airlines. Obviously, they've been hurt substantially as well as all the other major carriers, but that frequencies, we typically have three flights a day, and they're reduced to one right now. And we maintain a great relationship with both of those carriers, American and United. And they tell us they're committed to Springfield, and as demand requires, they will continue to add capacity, either capacity meaning more seats, larger airplanes, or additional frequencies. So I think collectively, local civic government, city leaders, we have all been really, keyed into on our air service development as far as increasing the frequency to both of the two main hubs that we currently have. And of course, we have the ever popular Allegiant Airlines, their service to Punta Gorda, Florida, that serves that Gulf Coast area around the Fort Myers area. And travel on Allegiant out of Springfield has been very robust recently. And generally speaking, the network carriers have been down across the country about 60% of 60% capacity. And Allegiant right now has really been moving people out of here with capacities upwards to close to 70, upper 70% load factors out of Springfield to Punta Gorda. So that's doing very well. When I say the rest of the industry is down 60%, generally load factors across the country are hovering between that 35 and 45% load factor. So we're seeing almost double that on that leisure market down to Punta Gorda. And that is,
I think that kind of gets into the next issue I really want to hit upon is Abraham Lincoln Capital Airport is only going to be as successful as the local community makes it a success, right? And we're seeing that we're seeing increased percentages of flights down to in capacity of those flights down to Florida. But with the announcement of American Airlines coming back, how likely do you think that is that we could see a revitalization of sorts of getting the Springfield community to take advantage of a resource like the Abraham Lincoln Capital Airport? And we're talking with the executive director, Mark Hanna, of the Capital Airport here with the WMAY Morning News Feed. So yeah, what's the likelihood of hearing some of these statistics and knowing that American Airlines is coming back, and the work that you guys do behind the scenes to maintain and generate those relationships with those air carriers? How important is it the community take up those services out of the Capital Airport here in Springfield?
It's absolutely critical. for people to choose local. When you talk about shopping local, buying local, flying local is just as important as the rest of that as far as maintaining, sustaining, and growing our local economy. So when you really look at the network carriers that are available, network meaning airlines that operate large hubs where you can connect and go to multiple hundreds of destinations worldwide, you have Delta, American, and United. Delta has not been growing regional markets. And just recently, one of our airports here in Central Illinois, they lost Delta service altogether. Delta is retracting. American and United, we have two of the three, and we need to maintain that. And over the course of it's been fairly routine for us that we have leaked, or our catchment area, as we like to draw the geographic boundaries of what our marketplace is, Jacksonville to Decatur, up to Lincoln, down to Carlinville, in the Litchfield area. We have nearly 65% of those potential passengers leak or choose not to fly out of Springfield. And those 65% actually still drive to St. Louis. Very, very slim leakage or lost passengers to the other airports in Central Illinois. So we really need to be committed to fly out of Springfield. And I think the community leadership, now that we have the Sangamon Springfield Growth Alliance in place and the leadership with Ryan McCready over there, that we can really pull this together and move Springfield forward in the future. It's so important that we use the service we have, because when you look at it, how much more can you cut from two flights or one flight with the current service that we have now, understanding we're in the midst of a pandemic. So it is fun to think about, hey, let's get Denver, or let's try and get Charlotte, and maybe look at that DC route again. But I think we really need to get back to basics and really look at who we are as a community, what we have been, as far as who are our major employers. Look at the top 10 top employers of Springfield, and really look at, are those entities really people that are flying? And I challenge you to take a look at that. And I would bet that the top 10 employers are a very small fraction of those flying out of Springfield. And competing airports have communities where those top 10, top 5 employers are actually one of the major users of the airport. So Springfield, just by our makeup of who we are, what we have been, always have to struggle to continue to pull from a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, and throughout our entire catchment area, to actually garner those passengers. So it's so important that we continue to fly, and we demonstrate to the airlines, especially American Airlines, because they were one of the airlines that were hit the hardest through the pandemic. They had the largest daily cash burn of all the airlines. And a lot of that goes into the planning that they put into place of growing and adding aircraft and updating the aircraft. So they had, going into the pandemic, one of the youngest fleets, meaning they had the largest fleet with the newest airplanes. So obviously that costs money, and we're just coming off of a number of years where we've seen record-breaking profits, and just in a matter of months, a lot of that just fizzled away into thin air. So we need to demonstrate that we are a market where American can continue to be profitable with the Dallas service, and also with United Airlines. We need to continue to push people to fly out of Springfield. And airfares have been very reasonable recently, and it's not the huge differences of fares that you haven't seen. We continue to work with American and United's revenue management people, the people down in the bunkers that are actually plugging in the fares and figuring out the right mix of fares and the seat mixes out of Springfield for their revenue targets. And also, we continue to talk with Allegiant Airlines. We have an ongoing dialogue with Allegiant for about 3 or 4 new destinations that we've been talking about for quite some time, meaning Phoenix, Vegas, Fort Walton Beach, the Destin area, and certainly Orlando and the Tampa Bay area. American Airlines certainly has the service, a great hub out in Charlotte. they're constrained by gates. There's not a lot of room for that airport to grow. Well, that is a destination that we'd love to have because it provides a little bit more of a direct East Coast connection. Certainly you have that ability with United's, for example. So, we're urging people to fly up and over Chicago, get out east, and as we have in the past, a lot of the southeast, and southwest markets into the LA basin, and down in Texas, Arizona has been commanded. American has controlled a lot of that market space. So it's kind of helped insulate both those airlines so that in Springfield, so they're not totally competing against each other. And once we feel that they're healthy and they're both doing well and thinking about adding frequencies, enhancing the service, possibly with a larger aircraft, going back to, a dual class with a first class option. We saw that with American Airlines. It was doing quite well before the pandemic hit. We were on par to go from a 50 seat to the 65 seat with the first class option. And that was in the schedule. That was a permanent enhancement for us. And certainly that was, put aside with the pandemic. So it is so important, and for the community to think Springfield first, thrive and spy, with what we're trying to do with economic development enhancement here locally and also beyond to bring business in. But it is a community effort to think to fly out of your local airport, just as you're trying to support local restaurants and order carryouts and throughout this difficult situation.
Yeah. And Mark, I tell you, we'll definitely bring you back on to get more developments as we see better uptake of the community taking flights out of SPI, and finding out some of those new destinations that we could see in the future. And we'll connect again also to talk about all the projects that are going on there at the airport, because there's a lot going on. Too much to talk about at this moment in time, but we'll definitely bring you back on to discuss more happenings at the Abraham Lincoln Capital Airport. Mark Hanna, the general manager, CEO, executive director. I just gave you 2 extra titles there. The executive director of the Abraham Lincoln Capital Airport. I greatly appreciate you taking time here with the WMAY Morning News Feed.
Hey, thank you, Greg. And a safe and happy New Year to you and your listeners.
You too.